Chapter 1. The birthday that didn't start like when I woke up that morning already feeling smaller than usual. There were no flowers. No breakfast smells. No soft footsteps or whispered plans. Just the low hum of the ceiling fan and the sharp ache in my left hip that always shows up when it's going to rain. It was my 63rd birthday. I pulled on my robe slowly, brushing past the quiet hallway. Downstairs I could hear Thomas, my husband of 27 years, on the phone. His voice light, amused. Talking about tea times and someone's new Tesla. I waited. Nothing about today. No mention of her birthday. When I finally stepped into the kitchen, he was already pouring himself a green smoothie. Not even a glance my way. "Morning," he said. Flat. Like a line from a voicemail. I cleared my throat. "Thomas, it's my birthday." He blinked once. Then grinned. "Oh right. Happy birthday." He sipped the smoothie, then added, "Well, you're too old for surprises now anyway." It hit me like cold wine through an open window. Too old for surprises. He didn't mean it to be cruel. At least I don't think he did. He said it the same way he asks if we have more almond milk. Like a fact. No emotion. And that hurt more than if he'd yelled. I sat down with a cup of coffee, black, just how my mother drank it. And I watched him walk out the door, keys jingling, headed to a golf game. On my birthday, he didn't even ask if I had plans. And maybe that's what broke me. Not the forgetting, but the not even thinking to care. I sat there for over an hour, watching rain streak down the back window, thinking about all the birthdays I'd spent baking my own cake, smiling through forgetfulness, pretending his last-minute dinner reservations were sweet gestures. But this year was different. This year I had something tucked away upstairs. Something I'd kept to myself. A sealed envelope. From my lawyer. Marked confidential. And suddenly, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. Chapter 2. The letter upstairs. The house was quiet again by the time I made my way upstairs. I walked slower than usual, but not because of age. Because I knew what I was walking toward. I could feel the weight of it before I even touched the doorknob to my office. Top drawer. Under an old calendar and a faded photo of our wedding day, Thomas and me, 27 years ago, standing barefoot on a beach in Cape Cod. He was smiling like I was the best decision he ever made. Now he barely remembered I was in the room. I sat down at the desk. My fingers hovered over the envelope. Asterisk asterisk Mrs. Diane M. Ellis asterisk asterisk neatly printed. No handwriting. All business. It was the final revision of the living trust. The document I'd been quietly working on with Linda Miles, my lawyer, ever since I discovered Thomas had refinanced the house last year without telling me. He said it was for a kitchen remodeled, and no kitchen ever got remodeled. The money was just gone. When I asked him, he smiled and said, "Don't worry about it, sweetheart. I've got it handled." But I was tired of not worrying. Tired of asking for transparency in a marriage that had slowly turned into a polite arrangement. Like roommates with a joint checking account and separate lives. So I started asking questions. Quietly. Carefully. And when Linda said, "You know you don't have to ask permission to protect yourself," something in me shifted. So I moved everything. The house. The savings. The Carolina Lake cabin. Even the antique furniture he promised to his niece someday. All placed into a living trust in my name alone. And this envelope. It was the legal confirmation. Everything had been finalized. The last line of the letter read, "Per your request, I will personally deliver a copy of this document to Mr. Ellis at the dinner event, pending your signal." The dinner. That was the kicker. Thomas had insisted we attend his sister's birthday dinner that night. Not mine. Asterisk asterisk hers asterisk asterisk. A catered thing at a downtown restaurant. He didn't even ask if I wanted to go. Just assumed I'd show up, smile, play along. I looked down at the envelope. Sealed. Ready. I thought about all the years I'd smiled through quiet slights. All the times I'd explained away his forgetfulness, his dismissive tone, the way he introduced me at work events like I was his assistant. And suddenly, I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't even angry. I just felt ready. Ready to stop shrinking. Ready to remind the people around me that I existed. I slipped the envelope into my coat pocket. The one Thomas said made me look matronly. I never wore it anymore. But tonight it felt right. I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror before heading back down. And for the first time in years I saw someone standing tall. Not someone waiting to be noticed. Someone about to be heard. Chapter 3 The dinner table smile. The restaurant was elegant in the way that made you feel underdressed no matter what you wore. Dim lighting, white linen tablecloths, waiters who spoke in whispers and moved like they floated. Thomas held the door open like a man performing a routine. He hadn't complimented my dress, hadn't asked if I was okay walking in heels. Just walked 2 steps ahead. As always, his sister Meredith greeted us near the back, her birthday dinner in full swing. "Oh," she said, surprised. "You brought Diane." Brought, like I was a +1. A forgotten RSVP. Thomas smiled, leaned in and whispered something in her ear. They both laughed at I found my seat. The end of the table **. Always the end. A little too far to hear clearly, a little too far to speak without raising your voice. I smiled anyway. Everyone chatted about renovations, ski trips, second homes. Meredith's son bragged about buying a boat. Her daughter rolled her eyes and talked about yoga in Arizona. Nobody asked how I was. Not once. Dinner was served. Salmon, arugula salad, some kind of sweet potato puree. It tasted fine. But everything tasted like fog when you're not really there. The waiter poured champagne. To Meredith. Someone toasted. Everyone clinked glasses. Thomas turned to me and said, "We'll celebrate you next year. 64 is a better number anyway." I smiled. Tightly. He took a long sip, then laughed to the group. "Besides, Diane hates surprises. Says she's too old for all that." The table chuckled. Meredith added, "Oh, come on, Diane. You used to be fun." Used to be. I looked at my napkin. Folded. Clean. My hands clenched underneath it. I was tired of being the polite ghost at someone else's table. Then I felt it. The envelope inside my coat pocket, resting against my ribs like a pulse. I looked toward the restaurant door. And right on cue, Linda walked in at no dramatic entrance. No spotlight. Just calm, collected confidence. She walked toward the table, her heels clicking softly on the marble floor. "Mrs. Ellis?" she asked politely. Thomas turned. Confused. Yes." She smiled. "I have something for you. Courtesy of your wife." And she handed him the envelope. The room fell quiet. Meredith raised her eyebrows. Her son stopped mid-bite. Even the background music seemed to lower. Thomas looked down at the envelope like it had teeth. He opened it. His eyes moved left to right, line to line. His mouth twitched. "What is this?" he asked quietly. Linda answered for me. "It's confirmation of the updated living trust. As of 6 months ago, all shared assets were legally transferred into Mrs. Ellis's sole ownership." His face paled. "The house? The retirement fund?" I nodded. "The cabin? All of it," I said. "Everything you put in my name years ago when you thought I'd never use it." Silence. Meredith looked stunned. Linda added, "Any attempts to interfere will result in legal action." Thomas looked at me. Really looked at me for the first time in years. "You planned this?" he whispered. "No," I said softly. "I protected myself. You just didn't notice." I stood up. The chair made a soft scraping sound. That was the only sound in the room. I looked around the table, at the people who'd smiled at me like I was invisible, and I finally smiled back. Not with sarcasm, with peace. Then I turned and walked out, my heels clicking just like Linda's had. And no one followed me, not even him. Chapter 4. The quiet after the air outside was cooler than I expected. That kind of clean cold that makes everything feel sharper. I stood on the curb for a moment, letting the quiet soak in. Inside that restaurant, the people who once ignored me were still trying to process what had just happened. But I wasn't thinking about them, I was thinking about me. Linda joined me a moment later. She didn't speak right away. Just stood beside me like an old friend. "Well," she said eventually, "that was graceful." I smiled. Was it? As graceful as a takedown can be. We both laughed just a little. Not out of cruelty, but relief. She handed me a final copy of the trust papers in a slim, flat envelope. "You did the right thing," she said. I nodded. "I know." We said our goodbyes. She got in her car and drove off, her taillights fading into the traffic. I stayed right where I was. I wasn't ready to go home, so I didn't. I checked into a small boutique hotel on the other side of town. The kind of place with real keys, not plastic cards, and throw blankets folded with intention. Room 203. There were fresh tulips on the nightstand. I sank into the armchair by the window and let my shoes fall off. The envelope rested on my lap, still sealed, but I knew every word inside by heart. This wasn't about money. It wasn't about property or titles or revenge. It was about finally choosing myself. Not in theory. Not in some self-help book, but in action. In silence. In saying, "This is what I will no longer tolerate," and meaning it. I turned off my phone. Let the messages pile up. I didn't need to hear Thomas's voice scrambling for damage control. Didn't need to read Meredith's confused texts or anyone's thinly veiled guilt. They could all sit with the silence for once. That night, I took a long bath. Ate room service pasta on crisp white sheets. Watched an old romantic comedy I hadn't seen in decades. I laughed out loud, real ugly joyful laughter. All by myself. And for the first time in years that felt complete. The next morning I sat at the little writing desk by the window and made a list. Just 5 things. Simple. Unassuming. Point 1. Visit the lake cabin alone. Point 2. Take a photo of myself that I actually like. Point 3. Wear red lipstick to breakfast. Point 4. Call my niece and invite her for coffee. Point 5. Send back the anniversary gift Thomas gave me last year. A treadmill. Not to make a statement. Just to make room. Room for something better. For someone more whole. Me. Chapter 5. The birthday I took back. I returned to the lake cabin 3 days later. It had been years since I'd been there without Thomas. Years since I walked barefoot across those creaky floorboards with no one asking what was for dinner or complaining about the cell reception. The place smelled like pine wood and memory. My father built this cabin with his own hands. I inherited it when he passed, and for the longest time, Thomas referred to it as our little escape. But the truth is, it was never ours. It was mine. I lit a fire in the stone fireplace and made a cup of tea, even though it was the middle of the afternoon. The air outside was cold, but the light on the lake shimmered like silver. I sat by the window and let the silence wrap around me, not as a punishment but as peace. This was my 63rd birthday late. Quiet. Solo. And yet, the most present I'd felt in decades. There was no cake. No candles. No one singing off-key. Just the sound of water tapping gently at the dock. And my breath. Steady. Unapologetic. Sometimes people ask when the breaking point happens in a marriage. But it's rarely a moment. It's the accumulation of dismissals. Of birthdays skipped. Of feelings minimized. Of being asked to dim your light to make someone else more comfortable. Until one day, you stop shrinking. You stand up. You open the drawer. You hand someone an envelope, and the whole room finally goes quiet. I looked at my reflection in the cabin window. Just the shape of a woman in soft morning light, wrapped in a cardigan, holding her tea with 2 hands. I didn't look victorious. I didn't look dramatic. I just looked free. Later that evening, I called my niece Ella. She answered on the 2nd ring. "Aunt Dee? Everything okay?" I paused. And then said something I hadn't said in a long time. "Actually, everything is better than okay." She laughed. "You sound different." "I think I am," I said. She asked if we could meet soon. I told her I'd love that. Then I hung up and smiled. Not because someone wanted to see me but because I finally wanted to see myself again. If you're listening to this, maybe you know what it's like to feel invisible on your own birthday. To be dismissed so casually that it almost feels normal. So here's what I've learned. You're never too old for surprises. You're just old enough to know you deserve better ones. And sometimes the greatest gift you can receive is the one you finally give yourself.